everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I'm currently on a juice cleanse right now, so that's what this is about. So today's video is going to be my February reading wrap-up. The first book that I read in February was A Lady's Formula for Love by Elizabeth Everett. This is on my 23 for 2023 challenge, but also just one that I've been really meaning to get to because it is a Regency romance in the feministic standpoint, and I've been really enjoying those stories. And this one was particularly fun because it's around science. And I enjoyed this book. I love the feministic elements, obviously. The bodyguard romance, the scientific part, the humor. And it was also really cool to have that danger element of someone's trying to stop their scientific discoveries and developments from happening. And I liked the story overall. So you're following the main character, Violet, who has this secret society for scientists and kind of like fronting as a parlor, but secretly they're all doing like science experiments there. And so it's very looked down upon in society if they find out. That's why it's a secret, but people are suspicious and they think all of these girls are weird, but they've developed something. And now and a kind of terroristic threat is around the city, and they're targeting this science group so that they cannot either develop or that they can take their developments of their like discoveries and inventions. And so she is targeted as one of those people. Her life is threatened, and she's assigned a bodyguard who is trying to keep her alive and make sure everything's okay. So yeah, I did like the story overall. I didn't like how one of my favorite characters ended up, but I think we will see them again. We'll see. But overall, this was cute, dangerous, funny, and a really good time. And I gave that book 4 stars. The next one I read was Mysteries of Thorn, Manor by Margaret Rogerson. This is a short little novella after the events of A Sorcery of Thorn, so it's kind of just like a cute, fun story for if you liked the characters and the story in Sorcery of Thorns. This is just like more content for you. It was kind of like a cute little cozy fantasy, I would say. I haven't really delved into cozy fantasy like a lot of people have recently because of Legends and Lattes, but I did really like this. I thought it was cute and fun. It's a cozy little fantasy to give you more of the characters you loved. I was very happy to see Silas again, and I think they're kind of leaving this open-ended so that the story could continue with some of the characters if they wanted. So we'll see what Margaret Rogerson does with that. But if she did and it was about that character, I would be all about it. So excited. So yeah, this was cute and fun and a very quick read. The next one I was able to read was The League of Gentlewoman Witches by India Holton. I think ever since I bought this or saw this, I swear it was Gentleman Witches, and my brain just did not read that word. So I've said it wrong a million times, but it's The League of Gentlewomen Witches. And this was also really fun and quirky as I expected it to be. Quirky, hilarious, ridiculous. I loved Alex. I thought I was gonna love him, and I really loved him. This was a different feel and take than the Wisteria Society, but I did really like it. Charlotte was also an interesting character with her vast knowledge of Jane Austen and her novels. That was like a fun little thing in here. And there's only one more book in the series, so I'm really curious to see how that book goes with the Secret Service thing in that, because the whole thing is that the like servants, maids, etc. have this like Secret Service that they're a part of, and so it talks about that a little bit in this book, and I'm curious to see how she expounds upon that. But yeah, overall, it was a fun, quirky, cute time as I thought it would be, and I would highly recommend if you like the feel of these books. And I gave it 4 stars. Another book that I was able to read was City of Nightmares by Rebecca Schaeffer. I already put up a book review for this, so I'm not going to stay on this too long, but it was a 5-star read. I thought the premise was really unique and executed well. You're following the main character, Ness, and in this world, when you sleep and when you dream, so you can sleep without dreaming, but when you sleep and when you dream, you will turn into your worst fear physically. So that could be a vampire, or it could be a myriad of things depending on what your worst fear is. And that concept was insanely intriguing and delved into, and it's just so good. You should read that book if any of that sounds interesting to you. The main character is a coward, which was a really interesting juxtaposition with the rest of this book. And it was done so well and just so good. Oh, I loved it. But yeah, if you would like to hear more of my thoughts on this book, go ahead and check out my review. I can link it down below where I obviously get into that a lot more, but I really loved this book. 5 stars. The next book I was able to read and finally finish this trilogy was Dark Harmony by Laura Thalassa. This is book 3 in the Bargainer trilogy. So I was glad that I was finally able to wrap up this trilogy, and this one was good. I liked it better than the second one, but I think the first one is still my favorite. I liked the mystery unraveling and finally getting answers to a lot of questions. The Thief of Souls is absolutely terrifying, and I think that character is written super well. Towards the end of this book, I was getting tense, which means that I'm very invested. Like, I felt the tension. I was worried about the stakes. The stakes were high. I was concerned, you know. That's when you know you've been like drawn into a book and you're just really invested in it, at least for me. I'm always a little skeptical now about how the hero will defeat the overpowered villain, but I don't think it was done poorly in this book necessarily. I think the end was a little short with the showdown, and I would assume the villain would have dragged it out more. Overall, it wrapped things up pretty nicely, and I was pleased, and I really liked this trilogy overall. It was creepy, dark, fun, and has wicked fae. If that intrigues you, you should give this a shot. Can't really give you the premise of this book without spoiling it. A siren, half female woman makes a deal with a fae king, and he's called the bargainer, so all of his deals are intense and usually are more than what you bargained for, and you usually wish you hadn't made deals with him. She makes a ton of them to where she's got a bracelet with a bead representing all of her favors that runs up her arm, and after 7 years of silence, which is unheard of, he finally comes to collect. So it was really interesting. Would recommend this trilogy, I think. And I gave it 4 stars, which is basically the theme for this month, I guess. Didn't realize that before. The next 2 books that I read, I picked up the first one because it was on my TBR, and then I just wanted to continue the series, which stands true today. I still want to continue. Was Broken Bonds by Jay Bree. This is book 1 in the Bonds That Tie series. I did not know how I was going to feel about this because it is a why choose trope, which is usually not really my thing, or at least from the couple I've read, I tend to not really like that. But this book was surprisingly addicting. I found myself easily getting lost in the story and really wanting to unravel the secrets in the plot. But for being a why choose trope, it was cute, and I'm invested in finding out what happens in the rest of the series. There are some bullying aspects, but the bullying aspects kind of come from a place of hurt and not just like petty reasons. Like the betrayal in the beginning of this story is really hurtful and really hard for them. I don't really know how to describe this series. So in this world, if you're of a certain blood, if you're of a certain like standing, you get this like blood test, and depending on how the blood test goes and how powerful you are, you will get these bonds, which are basically like fated mates. But you can have more than one. So some people have 2, some people have 3, some people have a bunch, some people have 1. I think you can have just 1, but yeah, anyway. This character finds out that she has 5, and because of some circumstances surrounding her mother's death, this like terrifies her and she runs away. They track her down and she's caught years later, and then she's brought back into the situation of all of these like hurt people, upset that she ran away from them, essentially. As in like, you found out we were supposed to be together and then you ran, and that's just hurtful. That kind of thing. So you understand a little bit of where the hurt's coming from. The bullying is still not okay, but there is some of that, but it's not as bad as it could be. One thing though that almost ruined this book for me was the almost pointless assault scene. One of the Bond's characters was trying to force her to complete the bond, which is basically, I don't want to say it's to have relations. It is, but you both have to accept it. He tries to force that out of her, and it was super upsetting to me, and I'm honestly trying to block it out so the book's not totally ruined for me. And I don't know why people aren't upset about it or talking about it. Maybe they are. I understand trying to paint that guy as upset and hurt and treating her poorly because he's upset and hurt, but that was crazy and unnecessary, especially if she's just going to continue to be around him. Another thing that got on my absolute last nerve at the beginning of this book was the incessant cussing. I'm not that fragile when it comes to cussing in books, but the first few chapters legitimately felt like it was every other word. Every other word was F this, F that. It was so overdone. And to the point where it took me out of the book, and I was just thinking, like, does this author need a thesaurus? And I'm thinking to myself, can't the writer think of a more creative way to communicate this? Like, is it not feasible for them to think up a more creative way to say this? I don't know. It really bothered me and was kind of like it just really bothered me. It was kind of taking me out of the book because it was so constant. And I can't tell you a time that I've read a book like that where the cussing was just like, where the cussing was so constant, it took me out of the book to be like, what is happening here? And I'm not even being dramatic when I say it was littered with those words. All that being said, I immediately picked up book 2 because I was hooked. I have to know what happens. This series has me in a chokehold. It's like a problem. I never thought this would happen. There's fantasy romance, whatever series that I really like and I really want to continue and I get really invested in. This one is like, I have to know what happens. I have to pick up the next book. Regardless of my TBR, I have to pick up the next book. That never happens to me. So I gave that book 4 stars, all said and done. And the next book is the book 2 in the series because I had to continue. So that was Savage Bonds by J. Bree. And all I can say, because you've heard the premise of the first one, and I can't really spoil what's going on in the second book, my dog just tripped over the cord. It was a problem. So I can't really tell you the premise of book 2, but I understand why people like this series. It seems super easy to devour. And I already want the next book. I already do, but I can't because of my March TBR. It's not a part of my March TBR, so I'm trying to get as much of my March TBR read as possible. And then I'm probably going to read the rest of this series as soon as I can. I'm just dying to know what happens. I liked the development we get in this book. We get a little bit more of that and a little more answers about the abilities and the backstory. You're going into the first book as kind of a mystery as the main character, Ollie, her past and why everything happened. Like, you just cut to present day. We're getting more backstory in this one, which is good and I really liked. There's spice in this one and a little bit, and that's okay, but I felt a little put off in the way it happened. I just felt like that could have been handled differently. It could have happened differently, but whatever. Overall, the story and the concept has been really interesting, surprisingly, and there's a lot of really cool abilities and plot that's coming in. And yeah, it's just been really interesting. And I've read fantasy romance that isn't a why choose trope that felt gross, and this one somehow doesn't, which I'm shocked on. Like, I don't know how or why, but I'm hooked and I will continue. This one was also 4 stars. I'm desperate to read the rest of the books. I think there's 3 more books. I will read them as soon as I can. That's how hooked I am. But that was the final book that I read in February. Hopefully I can continue the Bonds That Tie series soon. Those are all the books that I read. Please comment down below and let me know if you've read any of these books or books that you read in February. If you've read The Bonds That Tie, I would love to know your thoughts. But that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.